Thank you very much, Mansa. You are very welcome again to the Potter's House of Lagos and to this special day where we are beaming the spotlight on the issue of drug abuse. I know that at Freedom Foundation, which is a part of the General House of Freedom, which we also belong to as the Potter's House of Lagos, one of the major things or one of the major social issues that we focus on and that I know that even Pastor Tony is really passionate about is this drug abuse and helping people overcome it. And we've heard a lot about drug abuse. People think that I have a malaria. You have to correct me with that. I have a malaria and I walk to the pharmacy and I buy the drugs by myself. Is self-medication abuse? We may start from there though. But generally, what is drug abuse and what isn't drug abuse? I think we need to know that. Any one of you can answer.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. It's a privilege to be here. Well, like the moderator said, I've been with Freedom Foundation for 11 years. And that's my boss. I work with her. She's my boss, my director. I consult with House of Refuge. Well, we know what drug is. It's some will use the word drug abuse. Some would say chemical dependence. Some would say drug addiction. And the drugs we use regularly, some are prescribed and some are not. The prescribed drugs, which we are familiar with, which we also call medications, because we want to talk in layman's language, Doc, so everybody we won't be theoretical about it, and no, we won't be talking using medical jargons. We want to calm down. You go to an hospital, you see a doctor, you are placed on some medications, and you purchase the medications with dosages, and which you are supposed to use for a period of time. Those are legal drugs. Legal medications, and it could also be abused. You are having sleeping difficulties, you are placed on sleeping pills for a period of time, and after a while you get used to that medications and you keep using for a while, and you go back to the clinic and the doctor says, oh, try sleeping without medications, and a day or two, you're not able to sleep, you go back to the medications. And your mindset and body chemistry connects. And it's like, oh, if I don't use this medication, I cannot sleep. So it starts from there, and you keep using. And you look at alcohol, for example, is accepted socially. We entertain ourselves at home, guests, parties, is accepted socially. But there's a line there when it becomes abnormal, whereby that individual becomes dependent on alcohol. And it has a way it works. It starts with a bottle of beer, 2 bottles, 3 bottles, 4 bottles, before he gets drunk. And over time, he extends to 6 bottles. Over a time, he becomes addicted and he could become an alcoholic. And when he takes a glass, he becomes drunk at times. At that first glass, at that first bottle, but he will still reach that limit of 6 or 7. So when it becomes a problem, people around will be able to identify and know there is an issue. It affects that individual's day-to-day running. That is what drugs do. And, once you're on drugs, it affects your attention and concentration. As a student, once you're on drugs, learning cannot take place. And those are the things you need to learn. You need attention, you need concentration. And once those two are affected, learning cannot take place. And for an individual who is working as well, you will not be productive because the drugs takes grip over your attention and concentration. So it affects your functioning. So when we can say substance abuse becomes a problem, when that individual's body chemistry gets used to it, it starts craving for the use. It affects his or her functioning. It becomes a problem to that individual and people around him. Wow. Doctor, you have anything to chip on that?
Doctor?
No, I think you said it, that it's a progression starting from use to abuse to dependency and the disorder itself. And you just never know when the line, will be crossed, which is why we want to focus a lot on awareness, because It is only when we are aware that there's a danger and there's a possibility that the disorder can actually happen to any one of us that we'll be deliberate about, not even encouraging others around us not even to try it at all. So I think what we're doing right now is a step in the right direction. We just need to be aware that it's a spectrum, that like Dr. Ajirotutu was saying. Some people say, that alcohol thing, it does nothing to me. I'm able to do this. I'm able to take 2 bottles. I'm able to take, but there's something happening. It's changing your body chemistry. And over time, there's an imbalance in the brain neurotransmitters that then creates the disorder, which would then lead into all of the behavioral changes and, of course, starts affecting work, education, family, relationships, and all that. So what you see on the street started somewhere, started with some little use, experimentation, and then continue to progress. So, thank you.
Interesting. So where does this whole thing really start from? What is the role of the home, parenting, upbringing in all of this? Because we've seen the proliferation of drugs everywhere in today's world. There is the social media where people even boldly use these things. There is the pop culture, music, entertainment. People sing about using drugs. They sing about smoking, and people want to be cool. Our young children want to look cool, feel cool.
They want to belong.
They want to trend. They want to belong. How do we really start to work with them from the home, and what is the role of the home in ensuring that you prepare your child for the necessary, exposure that they might be getting into as they go out?
Okay, thank you. I'll take that question if it's okay. Yeah. So I think that starting from statistics point of view, in Nigeria, you have most of youth being, and that will alarm you, in secondary school students, adolescents, because that is where initiation starts. Of course, there's another cohort of tertiary students, okay? And then, of course, you have the older ones, in quotes, the agberos on the streets, the bus drivers and all of that. And then you have older people who over time have been using it and all of that. But that tells you a story really about drug use. Because initiation usually happens around the time of adolescence, identity formation, where the child is still learning willpower, subject to so many influences. The peer pressure, as opposed to parental influence, begins to climb. What curiosity is high, is the age of wanting to know, asking questions, is the age of biology, the puberty, is the age of conflicting emotions, is the age of it's now about me, not just what my parents, So that particularly predisposes children at risk. And I know that there are some people that talk about the law of first mention, and that's where parenting comes in. Have we introduced our children, and have we actually mentioned and educated them about drugs? Because like we were saying, and I make reference to one of your first statements, that we will not be blind, we can't be agnostic. It's with us, and they say that, the proverb says that the wise man sees danger ahead and prepares himself, but the foolish pass on, they just go on and are punished. Meaning that if we're agnostic and we do not introduce our children and educate them from the home that there's this possibility your friend may come with this and that, But these are the dangers. Saying it in a non-judgmental way, in a way that is loving, educative, more of education, because it's also the age of curiosity. And old parenting styles were like things that were more like taboo. You don't discuss them. But nature abhors a vacuum. So who is the person giving your children, our children, the information? And are they giving them the right information? Are they telling them the dangers? Are they telling them that man on the street started off as somebody, a very rich man in Germany, who was deported and has been 30 years in the wilderness and had to sell everything? That's drugs. Or are they just seeing the pop culture? Have we taught them that they're popular pop icons of the past, the big ones that sometimes even their parents have sung their songs, are dead because of drugs? Have we told them that? Have we educated them and inculcated it? Because it is, and they are curious. They want to know. I remember that Funke Akindele, when she first of all came into the acting, the industry, I need to know. It's the age of I need to know. Who is giving our children drug education? Are we just leaving it to whoever, their peers, school, whatever it is? Let's remember that the first influence, the first circle of influence is the family, and then other environments like school, like peers, and then the larger environment. And all of these places, and of course media, they are saturated with the wrong information. So it's important from the point of view of education, but also from the point of view of life skills. How assertive are we teaching our children how to cope with life? When you are told to do something, that's the essence of Proverbs. If sinners entice thee, that means there will be an enticement. Consent thou not, that is, say no. Are we deliberate about and it's a skill. Sometimes my son will come to me and say, Mommy, this person did this. That's the first thing. They need to learn to come to us and ask the questions. And then we need to be prepared. Sometimes I don't have the answer, and then I have to go and learn. But old parenting style, why are you asking that question? Just go, And then remember these days, they go to the internet, and the internet is not filtered. Google is there. Google has a lot of information, and so they will get that information before you. So there's quite a lot around intentional parenting, building life skills, assertiveness, self-esteem issues. That is also the area the time when children sometimes move into their shells, they become unsure about themselves. You need to build self-esteem, assertiveness, ability to say no, ability to cope with negative emotions, ability for self-regulation, to pull the brakes, and to be able to hold themselves in a social situation, particularly when they are in parties or when they are in this, because like you said, we are in the world, but we are not of the world. So we can't say we are going to isolate them forever. But when they're in that situation, how do they cope? So life skills, intentional parenting. And parenting is not taught to anyone. That's where we need to start maybe becoming more intentional. I think maybe we'll talk a little more about what the church and government can do about intentional parenting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. It's interesting to hear this. It all starts from the home. education. So as we're educating them academically, giving them formal education, I've heard a lot about sex education. Never have I heard about drug education for children. But it's a reality that we all have to engage in with our children and introduce them as early as possible, because enticement will come. So we should not live as though it will not come. It will come. But how well have we built our children so much so that they can identify what it is that should be from what it is that shouldn't be as Christians and as children of God? Wow, thank you so much, Doctor.
Okay, I want to still chip in on that, especially the parenting style, which we parents have to know. We have 4 parenting styles: permissive, neglective, authoritative, and authoritarian. I'll quickly run through the 4, as this has direct impact on child rearing or children rearing and substance use over years. I've seen this in my clinical practice of 25 years. Parents has a lot of role to play. Like I was sharing with the pastor that the children, the generation, when we talk about the Gen Z, the children who were born from 1997 to 2012-13, the generation is quite different. And moving down to the last decade, because they are virtually growing up in only 4 places, like I said. They are growing up in the house, in the car, school, and church. I can openly ask any of you, when last has any of your children gone to spend weekend with your sibling? Like we did when we were growing up. Like we did. At the end of the holidays, you are packing your bags, you're going to your cousin's house, 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then you are back. Yes, a lot of factors are responsible for that. Insecurity, abuse by family members, especially because the abusers are first family members or workers in the house. Those are the first abusers. So that has changed the trend. So parenting style has a lot of factors. The neglective, oh, this is the car, this is the driver, this is the money. You provide all the material things and they're not there. And like she said, if you don't listen to them, they will listen to others outside. You have to develop or learn skills. There are certain skills we call non-verbal communication. You see these children, you start observing. You don't have to wait for them to come to you. You have to go to them. I go to their rooms, I lie down on their beds, we talk, I create time for that. And you need to go to them. At times they will not come to you. And at times when they give you cues that they want to talk to you and you are not there, they talk to people outside. And that is what one of the things she was trying to say. Because they are vulnerable. They are not experienced. Look at where those areas I pointed that they are growing up. I have a case which I'm handling recently. Is an 11-year-old boy who got introduced to drugs by his grandmother's house help. They sent them, go and stay in grandma's house. And an house help, a male, about 17, because they keep taking them from one place to the other, talking about the house help. So he started smoking. He was smoking at the back, and the guy strolled there. And he gave him. His first drug was Indian hemp. He gave him. And he started. That was where he started, at the age of 11. By then, curiosity sets in, adventure sets in. And they see a lot of things. They search, they Google, they talk to people. And by 12, 13, 14, he had started using fully. So those are the things we need to know. It's not just providing the material things. And we're also enablers. A child wants to go to shop right there. A 13-year-old, 14-year-old, you are giving them 30,000. 2 people, 2 kids. You are making funds available for them. Because they are reading. There are 3 faces, which we know, we need to know. Face at home, which we see. Face in school, which the teacher sees. And that is why you see the reports they give you. It's very, very playful. It's very helpful. It gets angry easily. The summary report. But the ones we don't see is face among peers. Face among peers. And that is where a lot of things go wrong. You don't tell a child, give me your phone, I want to check your phone. You don't check children's phone like that. Who bought the phone? I bought the phone. Oh, please, I have a Zoom meeting. Please, can I use your phone? My phone has a problem. So I want to use your phone. So no quick editing, no quick deleting. It's an instant there. So I take the phone to my room. She sets up the Zoom for me. I would have pulled up the link. And so she doesn't have to be with me. So we set everything on her. So the link is on. I'm talking. And I'm reading all the chats. I'm reading all the chats. And if I read, no problem. No problem. And then you will start seeing things. You start seeing things that you need to know. And you don't, when you identify things like that, you don't flare up. We talk now. Yes. We talk. We sit down and talk. We level up. Because the things we knew at the age of 6, 7 in our generation is different from what a 7-year-old knows now. Not to now talk of a teenager or a young adult. Because they are still our kids, young adults. I have 3 of them. So you have to go into them. So I've talked about that they're authoritative, whereby you must read law. I have a chamber. You must take over this chamber. You must start preparing. And that guy wants to just be a banker. He wants to be an engineer. He has flair for that. Frustration sets in. And from there, you start playing with his career. Okay, he goes there to read law. He shows no interest. We start from University of Sussex after spending pound sterling for 2 years. From there, you move to America. He's about 24 now. From US, after 3 years, we come back to Babcock. Now, he's in Babcock. He's 27. He's now sitting amongst 19, 20 years old. He shows no interest. That journey, that misleading started from there. It's different from our generation. So you let them do things well, their way, guide, and you give them opportunity to talk to others who would mentor them properly. And for the authoritarian parenting style, that is negotiation. You talk with them, you let them sit. Because once all this goes wrong, it affects them in a way. And they are so vulnerable. They listen to friends, they listen to music, they go on Google that somebody else put there. These are our own decisions. And from there, we start. So we need to work with them closely. We need to monitor them. And for parents who drink and smoke, the home is the first learning point for any child. If some of us can cast our man's bike, maybe some of us didn't end up smoking. If you see parents or uncles smoking, then you will go and roll paper. Then you get the matches, and you light. That is because we are their role model. They learn first from home. Whatever we do, they learn from home. They see daddy drink excessively. They see daddy come home around 11 p.m. and his fight. Raising of voice, neighbors coming. Those are the things the children see. And the home is there. As I was sharing with pastors, the teachers are not supposed to teach morals. They are supposed to teach arithmetic, social studies, English. It's your responsibility to provide morals. It's your responsibility to provide morals. And even when the teachers now try to correct, parents go to fight in school. We've seen so many trends around. So the home is the key. The home is the key, and that is where learning has to start from, and proper education, as she said. The school, yes, they do drug education. They bring professionals to talk to them. And they are now undermining even primary school now. Primary school now. Oh, just focus on secondary school. Because they have access to everything. They have access to everything. You talked about the guy that stopped you there. And she talked about the Agberos. Well, he saw you, assessed you, because he's been selling to people who look like you. The corporate people. The features might not be so obvious because they have a job and they can still maintain the habit, unlike the person on the street. So he's been selling to people like you. Some people of your kind are his customers. So he just psyched you up and approached you. Probably you could be on that other side. And it was shocking to you that it's how bad it is now, bringing it to the road. Then nobody, in the past, if you are going to smoke in the army, you have to go and hide. Now it's on the road. Entrance of the church. It's on the TV. It's on the musicals with the red curb, the sagging jean, the chain. And that is what the youths are imbibing. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, that is serious. Dr. Majiyagbe, what are some of the legal and regulatory perspective to this drug abuse thing as we begin to prepare our questions? Pastor, do we have the video? Okay, so we would take the video before we then take the questions, but just the legal frameworks or some of the regulatory perspective to this entire epidemic.
Okay, so basically, Nigeria has focused a lot on the supply side through the National Drug and Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA. And you remember in the 80s was when Nigeria became like a hotspot or started, being like a transit country for illicit trafficking. So the laws have been strengthened, and every week you just have some kind of busting of these drug joints or all of that. Of course, that takes care of the supply. However, a lot more needs to be done in terms of prevention. They call it evidence-based demand reduction. That is, if there is no demand, there won't be a supply. So we've transited from just a transit country, but we are now actively, selling, and we now have a body of people that actually are demanding it because addiction is now entrenched. Like you said, there are 14.3, drug users. So there's also the perspective around, law enforcement, just once you see that maybe there's some kind of intelligence, sometimes they take also the users with them. So there's now this perspective that the users are actually victims, that they are not supposed to be the ones, they are not actual traffickers, they are more or less people that need help. And so NDLEA now works basically with prevention, treatment centers, and rehabilitation, so that instead of litigation and prosecution of users, you actually then focus them on where they can get help. So for like a Freedom Foundation, some of our clients for rehabilitation, are drawn from such agencies. So the law is strong, but it's the main focus is about making sure that the supply is scarce on the streets. Of course, cannabis is not legalized in Nigeria. It is legalized in some other countries, but even then, it's also in a controlled manner. But I think a lot more needs to be done around demand reduction, which is what we're doing, creating the awareness of the potential effects of drug use, so that people know that you don't need to, be high to really be high, You don't need the drug to be high. There are other alternatives of being of getting to your happy place and of maintaining your happy place, and all of that. So basically, I think that is that, but a lot of more collaboration, more awareness, and building a network. I was talking with a doctor before we came on here, and he says, the real issue also is that there's not enough of centers in the country to actually provide the services, whether of prevention, of rehabilitation, treatment, so legislation needs to actually become strong in that. Recently, mental health legislation, is receiving a lot more attention. But then the drug problem is a subset of that. So we need to actually promote it in terms of policy and drive that. So basically, I think my recommendation will be that we need to strengthen policy that allows me to be able to point somebody in need to a free treatment center funded by government, where it can have both the treatment and other psychosocial services. But right now, people are on their own, and well-meaning NGOs, like the church, like Freedom Foundation and others that, come together. Then, of course, there needs to be networking so that around all of this body of existing, whether private and public, to drive reduction and addressing the epidemic. So
thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you. Absolutely spot on that one. Because I do not believe that it is sufficient for us to address the supply chain and not address the demand, because it's growing. It was maybe in the past, yes, supply, but now it is growing, and there's so many parts to it, from the trafficking to, because it's actually, I hear it's lucrative. People, is your life or the money? People are willing to actually use their life to actually do
for
all
them.
this nonsense.
It's the path to, particularly that for the trafficking, it's the path to economic liberation. That was what happened in the 80s. So I become a carrier, or one becomes a carrier just so that I can make a lot of buck. But of course, any carrier or transit country eventually becomes a demanding country, because the people will really begin to use it. So we have moved, so our laws need to become stronger, not just to for trafficking, but also for usage.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Now, man is spirit, soul, body. As Christians, we know that man is spirit, soul, and body. You're a spirit being. As a Christian, we know that we are spirit beings. How does drug usage, drug abuse, addiction affect you as a spiritual being? You can take it or you can take it.
Okay, so I wish above all things that you prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers. So for me personally, I believe that a soul that is not prospering, a soul may not be prospering even though he is born again. Yeah. That's why we know that there are mental health issues. Christians can be depressed. Christians can be anxious. Christians can have pent-up feelings. Christians can feel like committing suicide. Christians are human. Like a friend told me the other day, Jesus was the Son of God, but he was also the Son of Man. So, by acknowledging our humanity, and that the fact that we have a soul that has needs, which we must nourish, which we must not ignore, so that we don't become broken. And Christians can become broken, even though their spirit man is saved and regenerated. So I think for me, and generally from the Christian perspective, is to pay more attention to our mental health as Christians. So I give you a typical mental health situation that Jesus had. My soul is sorrowful unto death. You know, we will consider that negative confession. How can you say that, Jesus? But he said it. He said what he felt. And that is one of the first steps of, resilience, emotional regulation, being able to say how exactly you are feeling, being honest with your soul. He said another thing. I wish that this cup will pass from me. He expressed a desire. Many times as Christians, say, oh, it's just the will of God. But we also have a reaction in us. And he said, Father, if it is possible. So there was that negotiation thing between him and the Father. But he also said, nevertheless, thy will be done. And the Bible said, an angel came from heaven and strengthened him. So we need to receive strength in our souls to carry on. Otherwise, we will become defeated mentally. We will get anxious because the world is, what some of our issues are that in prayer, and I think that is where prayer has also been studied. When prayer is that engagement with God, when you learn to pour out your anxiety, when you learn to talk about how you're feeling, and when you learn to converse with God about the day-to-day that is affecting you, then it becomes therapeutic, for your soul, and you receive strength. So for me, that is, we need to pay attention to our mental health. Let's get therapy so that the need for alternatives and the fast track to the high or to the restoration of our feeling low, we will not take that option, because at the end of the day, they are all human. And no one demonstrated that more than Jesus, our Lord and Savior.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for that. So we still have a more question, but we must move on so that we can take this, because we still have another session for 10. Do we have our questions? But we'll play the video and we can take all the questions for now. Please, if you have a question, you can note it down and let's pass it on. But media, can we keep the video, please? Thank you.
Pinch of crack like this, which is not even enough for me. They sell it for 200 naira. So calculate, I can take this up to 20. Lying to people, get the money, smoke from this thing. And you look at where I sleep too, like a fowl. So I want to be delivered through the people of God, so that I will start working for God. And please, Pastor Tony, I'm waiting for you. Please don't make it delay. Come quickly for me. Come quickly for me, because I'm tired, and it is you I've seen that God will use to do it. Please make it quickly for us, Pastor Tony. They are in pain now that the chain has been broken. Pastor Tony, this is my chance now, and I'm ready. Thank Jesus. I thank Jesus for breaking the chain. Yay! My leg like this. Keep burning you. It's burning you. The reason why I'm happy today, because God has started a good work in my life, and I know it's going to be better. It's going to be better. name is Prince Udugbawa. I am the facility officer of House of Refuge Freedom Foundation. A lot of things are changing my life. Now I know who God created me to be. The purpose too, why God created me to be alive to today. Part of my job now is to talk to the young ones how to live life. And God will help us in Jesus' name. I pray that you do it. He has done it for me. I work in the office doing schedule every day as a facility officer, and I'm happy doing it. God has changed everything. According to His word, He said, if any man is in Christ, is a new creation. All things. So Igbodo is the old thing now, it's the old level. Now we are in the new level, so no more going back to Igbodo. We call it Fiji. No more going back to it. 2014, I was begging on the road, on the traffic at Ikeja General Hospital, going begging for money and go smoke drug because I didn't have anything doing that, just to beg money and go smoke drug. So that was just the life I was living. Now, I'm still standing spiritually, physically, financially. Now, I could have been a dead man. I could have been in the grave. Graveyard is a lonely place. There's no hope for the dead. There's no hope. I remember that day, Pastor Tony came to pick me at Ikpodo. The drug dealer all were mocking me. You only change. Oshima Padawa. Ati riru mori. Only change. But look at it now. I'm still standing. Now I'm in a good relationship. I'm going to do my wedding, and you're going to invite you all. And that day is going to be those drug dealers that said I will not last. I will still come back there. That day, they will know that, yeah, God is powerful. I've left the drugs. I live a normal life. My mind is no more there. I'm so sure of my future. It's bright. I so much have the guarantee. Just watch me. Give me a few years. You start to hear my name all over the world. I am Prince Udugbawa.
Where he is now, he is a staff. He motivates others. We work closely in House of Refuge, where he sees to the daily activities alongside with the nurses of other clients there. It's a great success story. I've seen some of them, they were given such opportunities, they would find their way back. Pastor Tony will still go and pick some of them, and some we gave up. But his willpower to fight, took him this far. Thank you.
Wow. Well, I think for the second time, we're going to touch on the question of stigmatization. We're also going to touch on the question of relapse. Why do people go back? What's the average time? Is there an average length of time it will take? But we'll just take this question because we must wrap this up by 10 o'clock and leave. What is the most preferred or effective method of parenting? We're going to need to have a session on this parenting. Today is for drug awareness, but you can briefly touch on it as we quickly
authoritarian is the best, like I said, whereby we sit down with these children, we talk, we listen to them, we look at issues together, which is quite different from being authoritative and telling them this is what you must do, this is what, and some of them, they would withdraw from you. And it's beyond money. So you have to give them the listening here. You have to relate with them because the generation has changed. And you know what we are talking about. If you tell some of your children who are 7, 8 years old, Daddy, why should I do this? Why should I do this? You have to do it because you have to do it. This is the reason why you have to do it. You take time to explain. If you don't do it, these are the repercussions. It's beyond beating now. Because I've seen children, once you've been beaten, you've been flogging, they get used to it. So once you approach, they are stretching out their hands. or they are kneeling down by themselves. And it tells you that they are used to it. So authoritarian is the best method. Neglective is a no, no, no. We don't need to shift our responsibilities to others. Not just providing the money, the clothes, the games. It goes beyond that. So that's the best method.
Thank you very much, Doc. Please, I will like to ask, what are the alternatives of being in a high place or be still feeling high without taking substance? How do you get high without being on substance? Feeling high, probably just being the best that you can be without being high. I also learned that cannabis is medicinal. I know we had that question, but we just didn't get there. Cannabis is medicinal, but some people don't know about this. How do we take this and maintain our mentality? Medicinal cannabis intake. Interesting.
Thank you. Well, be not drunk with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. That's your high. That's our high spiritually.
Absolutely.
But of course, there are other ways we feel high, Basically, we have to go back to recreation. I was listening to someone the other day, and the person said God rested, and man woke up, or man started his life on the note of the day 7, the place of rest, So rest, recreation, fun times, playtime, it's so crucial. Mental recreation, physical, exercise. Sometimes people that want to break out of a cycle, sometimes you've got to integrate your biology somatically, such that you begin to exercise, and exercise itself releases the feel-good hormones, dopamine and all of that. So we need to restore how we recreate and provide more opportunities for rest, recreation, fun times. Like I was privileged to, study a particular article, and it says that just like you ensure that I think it was a neurobiologist, but they say that you should give yourself a recipe every day. You should do something that you like doing, something that makes you happy, And of course, there are other things that you can engage in, like just social, like not Pastor Dr. Ajirotutu said that life is basically lived in 4 arenas, and that coops us up and sets us up for no avenue for our minds to actually relax, regenerate. So we've got to move outside of those arenas and create the safe places for, good recreation, things that are fun, things that are, sometimes, like I said, you take up a hobby, exercise, all those little things, gardening, learn a musical instrument. If you're the musical type, just the learning of that, take up dance. There are many ways that God has built in life to enrich life, and we therefore need to begin to enjoy those things as an alternative to the fast food or the drug route. I think, the other question is around
the medicinal cannabis.
Yeah, medicinal cannabis is a bit different from the marijuana that you see there. So, and it is used usually for some specific conditions, and it's known to help those conditions, and it's taken basically like it's a supplement. However, it's not licensed here in Nigeria. We're still dealing with a drug problem for which we don't even have enough of capacity to deal with. So it's good to know, but it's also good to know that what is available here is not medicinal cannabis.
Absolutely.
And the form of use, the medicinal aspect is processed, right? Quite different from being wrapped, the seed,
yeah. And then
and
just
smoked.
go straight into your
The
bloodstream.
seed, we know this is our body, but doctor is there. If I ask you, where would you get the largest fat in our body? Some of us, it's in the brain. Your biology, go to that diagram. You see the brain there, the fat there. And when you smoke Indian hemp, there's a seed there, it gives this sound, bah, 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 bah. And when it's being smoked, it goes in there, follows through the synapse, the neurotransmitters, and it goes there. It turns to oil and cannot dissolve in fat. So it keeps accumulating until it turns into features like hallucinations, whereby you start seeing things other people don't see, hearing things other people can't hear. And those are all marks that they know that there's a problem. There we are not sitting anymore because there are levels. You know, some use, it doesn't affect them mentally. It alters their behavior, and Doc and I will treat them. Some would use, they develop mental illness. And you have to go to psychiatric hospital first, where you have to take care of the major symptoms, hallucination, delusions, and all that, before we start talking. So, and we've seen cases whereby some people develop psychiatric condition from the use of cannabis. And now, the substance use does not become any problem again. That person will just keep managing psychiatric illness. He's not even going back to smoke again. I've seen so many cases. So the drug, and that person, and some people are predisposed to have mental illness. But going to use drug brings it out quickly. Wow. So many cases we've seen. And if you are predisposed to have mental illness and you don't touch it, all be good, you are fine. But I call it deliberate self-harm.
Yeah.
Deliberate self-harm.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Someone writes here that, in my opinion, going through a child's phone or property is the wrong approach for some children. They aren't stupid, so they'd notice, and you'd start seeing signs of anxiety and withdrawal. What other ways can you reach your child?
Like I said, there are so many ways you can reach them.
Thank you. Yeah.
We've talked about interacting with them. Mm-hmm. We've talked about listening to them. We've talked about creating time with them. We've talked about spending time with them, not even at home. Do you understand? But as a father, as a mother, as a parent, there are so many skills. I just gave you an example. Mm-hmm. Do you understand? Whereby you can just use your skill to look into things, because those phones are coded. You can never break into. You don't know their password. But for you to ask indirectly in a more pleasant way, like I said, because we need to know so many things. Trust me, I work with them. I've seen parents passed out. They pass out when you find out that 16-year-old girl is on drugs or being caught in Babcock. Random tests are done in all those schools. Mm-hmm. The parents and they just keep visualizing the face they see at home. But he's on drugs. He has not gotten to a breakdown point. Yeah. But he's using. So, and from information they get to know, the school authorities get to know. So they just pick some of them and do random tests. And it becomes positive. He's expelled or suspension. And they tell them to go. So parents are shocked. They are in a shocked state. That's so we must find ways to find, because some of these people don't see. It's just to look in. Nobody will give you. You won't ask, I want to take your phone, or you go in the night. No. You will give, he or she might give it to you voluntarily.
Meaning you have to really draw your children in. You have to have built a relationship with your children before you can even expect them to negotiate with you and start to open up to you. There was a story of a very brilliant child who the parent had sent abroad, He was an A student here in Nigeria. He was doing fantastically abroad. And the next thing, I think the school called and required intervention for him because he had gone mental. The boy eventually killed his mother. He just went bonkers in the hotel room, killed his mother, ran, whatever. That was a major, major problem for them. So I think it's just important that we try as much as possible to really nurture a good relationship with our children as we bring them up. And truly, I hear that motherhood is a calling. There was a book that I read. It says motherhood is a calling. When God gives you a child, I assume the same thing for fatherhood as well. When God gives you a child, know that it is not because you alone have the capacity to do it. God is trusting that you will be relying on Him to really help you on how to bring up that child. These two I will combine, and it's the last question for this morning. How do I help a partner hooked on cannabis, smoking cannabis, basically? And what is the best way to get rid of nicotine addiction? You would take that for us, sir.
Okay. How do you help a partner who is on drugs? Well, that person must have observed certain things, and he or she must have opened up to you, and you seek help by seeing a professional. Well, the church is a run to any day, anytime. I always tell people a lot of referral comes from churches as well, because the church is a run to for so many people, whereby they get counseling, they get support, emotional support as well. But for addiction, a professional help is required. And there are so many call-out centers there where you can reach people, and that's one of the things we've been trying to do with Freedom Foundation a lot. I work for the government. We have no time to look for anybody. For example, we are saturated with work already. So it's the NGOs, the other organizations who are involved in drug management, treatment, and prevention. They have so many dedicated lines. They have available lines where you can reach for help. And you can even walk into any of those treatment centers to get help. It's better the person act fast.
Okay, that's for the nicotine addiction or something? Oh, okay. For cannabis, I would think that this person is asking probably because the partner may not even think that there's something wrong with drinking, with smoking cannabis. And you just feel that this is not good for you and I must intervene. How do you help such a person?
There are so many people who smoke regularly on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about cannabis. The function, they go to work, they are married.
Yeah.
Their wife knows. Neighbors know. He goes to work, he gives people money. In the family setting, they know. He's functioning. Yeah. But a breakdown can come at any time. It can come. I've had a child who smoked in for the first time at the age of 18, had a breakdown. We've seen people, after smoking for 15 years, the breakdown was set in, and it could happen at 20 or 25. So the person can see a counselor to start with. Can speak with the counselor. We are not talking about treatment yet, if you had not snowballed into that, but prevention and management is also key.
Okay. Do you want to answer the question on nicotine addiction?
For nicotine addiction, nicotine addiction is also, one of the addictions. And I think that seeking help, everybody that smokes, it's not as if eventually it becomes a disorder. It's just that compulsiveness to continue to do it, irrespective of knowing the harm it's doing to them. But there are different treatments, but I think that it does start with, like Dr. said, for any addiction, recognizing that I need help. And unfortunately, that I need help call may not happen until there's a crisis, like he said. Or there's a recognition that this is going to destroy me and destroy so many things that I really love, like my family and my children, my relationships and all of that. So I think it's about educating and getting people to that point of motivation where they want to change, because even for treatment of nicotine or any addiction, it starts with, am I willing to change? And yet, sometimes you don't get to that place until you have an epiphany that, and everything has just gotten to rock bottom. Sometimes it could be a wake-up call in terms of there's a health issue. Maybe the person has a stroke from something, then all of that. But I think the community can help by increasing awareness, particularly for every drug. People have got to know what the end point is. Okay. Yeah, we know it for cigarettes and all of that. For nicotine, remember nicotine is the addictive substance in cigarettes.
Exactly.
So what some people do is nicotine replacement, and or have other ways of e-tobacco or e-cigarettes and all of that. But I think that it really needs to be handled as a proper addiction professionally, and keep pushing the person, like you said, to a point of counseling. There's what we call behavioral motivational interviewing.
Yeah.
That yes, you don't have the motivation, but a counselor can help you get there to consider that. Would you, I know that this thing is doing you good, but in 2 years, this could happen.
This will happen to you.
Is that your, and then get them to that point of epiphany.
Absolutely.
Whether it is for nicotine or even for an abuser that is not yet ready.
Absolutely.
Or that is functional, because there are functional users all over the place.
Definitely. And that's a good place to even round it up. Please, can we give a big round of applause to our incredible experts. For the second service, we will continue the conversation. I think we'll touch on the subject of stigmatization, the role of the church, and a few other things that we must do to overcome drug abuse, drug addiction. I think you touched more on parenting. People really want to learn more about parenting and how to help their children. I don't know whether I'm authoritative or authoritarian. I still beat ya anyway, so it is well. Also, I really encourage us that we take the most of this. I think we should watch it again and again. It's going to be online. But thank you so much for the education. We really appreciate this. Thank you, sir. Pastor.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Put your hands together for...
Thanks for watching the Potter's House of Lagos global broadcast. For more information, please visit www.thepottershouseoflagos.org. You can also follow us on all our social media platforms to stay up to date with everything we're doing here in this ministry. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.